2, Community Conversations, our weekly AMA with Microsoft and CMX. And today's guest is the wonderful Margareth Egbuchulam. We're going to talk today about moderation strategies. Folks, you have a choice with these AMAs. It's a little bit different than our usual events. You can type a question, and one of us can read it, or you can speak. So I've made you, if you're here, you have the option to speak. So I'm going to kick it off with a question, and then folks who are here, pipe in and ask yours. So, what do you like about moderation? What's your favorite strategy around moderation?
Hey, thank you, Larry, for the question. For me, my favorite, what I like about moderation is the fact that it empowers everyone in the community to own and have the responsibility of safeguarding the tenets that make a community safe. So without moderation, some might be aware of that responsibility, and others, even though they are aware, they might intentionally just want to do as they like, thereby unintentionally or intentionally ruining the entire community experience for everyone. But with moderation, we are creating a safe space for everyone. Through moderation, we set the tone and we set the pace for how we want our community to be the in the present, and together we work on that journey to where we would like our community to go to in the future. And should anything have happened in the past, through our conversations and the rules we have put together, we can correct the actions of the past. So, in the end, the community members present and community members that are still coming can be assured of a great experience. Now, one way of ensuring that that works is creating, my strategy is number one, creating community guidelines that also states the repercussions when certain actions happen. So community members are not left in the dark. So if, for example, you use a curse word on someone, that's not when they're meant to know what is supposed to happen to them. Prior to them joining, or when they just joined the community and they've read the community guidelines or the community handbook, they know that for every action there's there's a consequence to it. And we're not saying that we want to give you grace. The first time might be due to ignorance. You just joined, you didn't read all the community guidelines, and that's where the community manager now steps in and enlightens the person in like privately, and then coming out to the general public too, to now reiterate that that rule that guides everyone. So that way, everyone now knows that it's, if you do this, this is what you get. And this is why, exactly, this is why you are getting it. Because sometimes it makes more sense when someone is being corrected, that they understand why and also know the next steps to take to prevent that from happening. But just punishing someone or correcting someone, and they're still not, like, they are still not in the know as to their crime exactly, I think it will now defeat like the entire purpose of moderation. So that's for me, that's the community guy. And then you as a community manager too, one strategy that I also employ is I'm very particular about my conduct within the community. Because as the community manager, you serve as a walking Bible or a walking mirror for people in the community. If they have seen you acting in a particular way, they would definitely, even though you're not meant to like believe that, but it's the human nature. The same way children copy their parents unintentionally and intentionally too, is how your community members too would actively copy whatever it is that you're doing. And one of the funniest things that I've seen is when you now start complaining about that attitude, it will be so fun. But people will be quick to remind you that this is how you've been acting. And then I matched your energy. You don't realize that, oh, this hurts. Yeah, it can be really it can be really funny, but then that's how quick it is, which is why when you constantly practice the values that drive and bind the community, it will be easier for one to um, abide by the guidelines and the tenets. And then moderation, even though it's not easy, but then it's now attainable by all members of the community.
Wonderful. Precious, would you like to ask a question? I don't know if they can hear if they all you need to do is
Yeah,
type.
yeah. Can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you. Welcome.
Yeah. Good evening.
Good evening to
So
you.
I'm actually like enjoying the session. I don't have any question yet, but then I'm going to ask as soon
Okay.
as I have. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're here. I was wondering, I think moderation is an area where we can have some very thorny or difficult conversations. And I'm wondering if we could talk about some not thorny or difficult conversations, because it seems to me that every time we talk about moderation, and it's valid, um, I was wondering if you would be able to share some really positive experiences that have come out of moderation.
Okay, so number one, it would be a community of creatives or content creators that I actually manage, where someone put forward a what's it called? There's I think on Canva there's this thing where people can like share um the price to be on someone's team, and then they have access to more assets and more functions on Canva. And then this person made a payment for that service twice, but the recipient was insisting that no, it was only once that they got the money, and it would have been like a very dicey situation. But one thing I appreciate about the moderation was how the member came to meet me privately, and based on like the guidelines that I had already shared earlier, if you have any questions, I'm always available to respond to them, whatever it is, and we'll work through that together. And having the member come to me first, and they had already solved the issue. I wasn't even aware of what had happened in their DMs. But I think having those guidelines in place or having that moderation set, I was honored to now be like a part of that conversation. And I think that's what happens when you set the precedent for how things should be in your community. Because I would always put out a disclaimer. I'm not saying you shouldn't connect. I'm not saying you shouldn't like work with somebody or pay for services that someone is rendering. But I need you to know that whatever decision you take, whatever transactions you are carrying out, at your discretion, that's your responsibility to bear. And I was very grateful that the my community member literally saw the wisdom in that. And he was like, I'm not here to like make an issue or drag it out, but I just wanted to like bring this matter to you and ensure that in the future other people are like kind of like wary before they have dealings with XYZ. And I was like, thank you for letting me know. Like this is how, and since that day nothing like that has happened. So I'm very I'm sure that they had settled their issue, and they had like passed the word around. But please be very the responsibility to vet whoever you are going to work with in this community is absolutely up to you. Even though we encourage support, but be very certain before you help someone. So that's like number one. And then I think moderation also encourages kindness and empathy and collaboration. So it's everyone is just saying don't do, but the do's are moderation also ensures that all the values that make your community, that if everyone is just tending towards the don'ts, I think there's an issue. But if everyone is like moving towards the do's, it means that you're actually doing something right. And for the KJMA community that I manage, one thing in terms of moderation is we do not attack we do not speak ill of the actors. We speak ill of the characters that they portray. Is we like the name suggests K dramas coming. It's not the actors themselves. So I think everyone knows that vibe. And I know there's this particular actress that I think my friend is here. She already knows the person I'm talking about. And every single time I always have flack with the character, not the actress, because there are so many things that can actually go wrong. It could be the director, it could even be the script itself. Like there's a lot riding on an actor or an actress performing their very best. So because of that, and because I already have like a background in script writing, it wouldn't make any sense to not draw that distinction, to not draw that line. So which is why I'm glad that my community members are kind to the actors, and they if we want to talk smack, we talk smack about the the characters that they play. And with that understanding, we can now have um, constructive criticisms. We can discuss. We can try to think like what was the writer thinking when they were doing this, what was the director saying, what was the like there's a whole lot of conversation that now comes from a place of genuine understanding and interest. But if that line was not drawn, I think would have there could always be like a conflict of interest. And when someone is speaking smack about, say, the character that your fave played, you just know that it's not them, it's the character they're talking about. Yeah, so these are like some of the positive um things that I've gotten yeah, from moderation. Hi, Joma.
Can you hear us, Injoma? Maybe.
Hi, Margaret. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I was muted.
Yay! Well, welcome. Do you
Thank
have
you,
any?
Lord.
You're welcome. So, do you have any questions about moderation or um, any burning challenges you want to ask?
Okay, Margaret, I have a question for you. I joined quite late, so I wanted to ask. So, when you are moderating and there is a conflict in the community, how do you go around that? Did
Okay,
you hear
for
me?
me, yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. And I got your question. I got your question. So
Okay.
for me, I would say, Precious, I've seen your question. I want to get to, done answering
We have plenty of
Jama's
time.
question. Yeah. So for me, I would kick off with saying, number one, you allow, like you observe, and most times you allow the conflict play out. You allow the conflicts play out. Now, when it's getting out of hand, you will know. As the same way, when you see two kids fighting, we always wonder why the parents like just sit back. But when it starts escalating, the parents now come in. I think the reason is this: number one, it allows the community members themselves learn from that conflict, because it's not just enough to have conflicts. After conflict, after a conflict has happened, after a conflict has been resolved, then there has to be a learning after that conflict. So that's like the number one. You observe and allow the conflict to like play out. Now, if the conflict dies a natural death without your intervention, there's a lesson to be learned there. Now, if the conflict is escalating, you can now slide into the DMs of these members, and then you ask them for like a ceasefire. Now, if they're not paying attention to you, you would now come on the platform to ask for a ceasefire. And if it's say a platform like WhatsApp, you lock up the platform when everybody's blood has like calmed down and everything. You will now start as a community manager and reiterate to members what your values are, what your tenets are, and why, and not pick a side. Yes, like you have to be like in the middle as possible. Why? Okay, and here's why I said so. If if for example you had not been online when the issue started, and when you observe, it allows you know when best to come in, because some people might feel slighted, some people might feel, and because their emotions are like very high, so you also need to like tread carefully to avoid robbing Peter to pay Paul in that situation. So which is why I'm like my very first advice is always like observe. Then you slide into their DMs to let them know that this is not how issues are being resolved in our community. Now, after the resolution has happened, a lesson has been learned. You now have to like you won't let it die. No, no, no. You have to now address the entire community without naming names. You can say the what the action that went down on our community page last week isn't nice and it's not who we stand for. And then um I would like both parties have I would like both parties have dialogue and they have come to resolution, and I'm certain I'm going to apologize to communities another thing, no, because they have disturbed the peace of the community. Both of them, even if they won't apologize to themselves, they have to apologize to community members because they sort of like breached the atmosphere and they let a lot of nitrogen come in. Yeah. So they also have to apologize to community members for disrupting the peace of the community. And then you would now say, henceforth, please like go back to the manual, like the community guidelines. Now, if whatever happens hasn't been reflected in the guidelines, that's now an opportunity to now let the house know that I did not also like because we did not anticipate that you own that part of the cross, then you now let them know that to prevent this from happening again, these are the actionable items. Number one, we're going to update our community guidelines to reflect this so that in the future this kind of thing doesn't happen. And also the next steps that will be taken. So, for example, just to let them know how to even prevent this conflict from happening. If somebody is having different opinions, like different opinions based on an issue, always remember to focus on the issue, not the person. But by focusing on the person, not the issue, you're not making it personal. And however they react, it's within their own right to react in that way, albeit like the community guidelines that we already have. So that now allows you educate your community members again on the rules and not on the rules, on the guidelines and the tenets that guide and bind every single person. And you would like for real, and you have to do the same thing in different scenarios for everybody. So whatever conflict resolution plan that you have, you need to ensure that you are going to be willing to carry that out for everybody, not for some people. But that's like oh, you're not here when I said it initially. A community manager is the literal representative, is the literal community guideline for every community member. So if you are very selective when it comes to conflict resolution, it's definitely going to be a huge problem in the future. So you literally have to ensure that either you make your community guideline as robust as possible and then no one reads it, but you do as I do, not do as I say. Yes, that's that's the thing you have to like take note of. Thank you so much, Jama, for your question. I hope I provided enough answers to that. And now, Precious, your question: how do you manage stubborn members? Laurie, I want to know that your video is turned off. I don't know if it's intentional, but
Yes, it's
okay.
intentional. I'm turning it off so we can let you have the spotlight, if that's
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, how do you manage stubborn members? Precious, please, what do you mean by stubborn members? Because stubborn is a frame of mind. I, for example, am very stubborn, but that
Yeah,
doesn't mean that I'm not I'm not I am not open to listening to the other party. Yeah.
yeah.
Please,
So
remember.
so for instance, I think Ijoma asked a question about conflict, right?
Yeah.
So imagine when, okay, we'll finish talking about this thing, but then this member keeps going back to, maybe trying to prove himself right, and then, oh, we've settled this, locked the group for 5 days, we open it on the 7th, we've locked it for 3 days, open, yeah, we locked the group for 3 days, right? Jesus died and resurrected on the third day. Yeah, we unlocked the group on the third day, and then this member keeps going back to the issue that brought, about we locking the group, right? So how do you deal with those kind of members, those guys that, that won't take corrections from you?
Okay, so for one, it could be that your member is new. Yes. Could be that your member is new. Like there could be various reasons. So if your member is new and maybe they're not aware, you iterate that, okay, this is why we actually locked the group. And another thing could be, here's the thing, the the goal in conflict resolution is to ensure that your community members do not suffer for the actions of, say, some community members. Because locking the group inadvertently could mean that community members would suffer. Why? They will not be able to like contribute to the group, to the group, talk about things like even if the conflict has like died down, they they would want to like continue and act and like move on from the situation that just happened. But then you've because as a way of brokering peace, you might deny them that. So which is why you now like state now and then the next thing is you can throw it open. Like you can have like open house conversation or a town hall meeting. If 3 days seems like a lot, you could decide to now say, okay, no, let's do it for like 3 hours with the intention that by the time the 3 hours are done, and you've made your speech as a community manager, no one rehashes this. Any issue that wants to, like anything that wants to happen about this situation that just happened should happen privately with you, and that way you can take note of that. But if after 3 hours, like that's what I said initially, your guideline should not just state the don'ts. What would happen when those don'ts happen? So people are aware that their actions would cause a ripple effect in the community. So if somebody still goes ahead to bring up the issue after the 3 hours of like truce, you then go ahead to say then the group is going to be locked for 6 hours. So that way now everyone now knows who exactly to blame. Not that I'm asking them to like go all out on that person, but it just lets everyone know that it's not a laissez-faire time. It's not free for all. If um if you keep disrupting the peace of the community, it's definitely going to be costing every single person something. So to prevent that from happening, every single person has to like responsible. So these are like some of the measures that I'm proposing to deal with like a stubborn community member. And you can also speak to them privately. And if they keep doing that, then have no other option but to compose a beautiful farewell note to the person, let them know that you support them in their journey. But at this point, the community is not for them. Why? Because they are a threat to the peace of the community.
That's excellent. That's excellent.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Precious. You were speaking.
I was just thinking how for explaining. Yeah.
What did you say? I think of how you explain. No, it's you be as honest as possible. Like
Yeah,
also
yeah.
personalize the
Thank you.
message. That you admire their persistence, but you've given them opportunity to grow and see things from the point of view of not just them, but also the community members as a whole. And right now, they are threatening the set piece that they enjoyed before the situation occurred. So, and if it's not a first time occurrence, then you've now realized that it's a pattern. So if you can't, because that person would keep doing that and people will keep seeing that, and before you know what happens, they would assume that that's a way of life of the community, and it will disrupt all the work you've put in over the years, over the months, to get to that level. So nothing should threaten the stability of a community. And I mean, when I mean nothing, I mean nothing negative. Yes. And like the great Zedekah Zuzarado said, the greatest of all evil comes from the purest of all intention. So the person could be coming from a good place, but constantly doing that could also threaten the goodness of the community, the tranquility of the community, because they just don't want to let something that happened in the past go. I hope I responded to your question, Precious.
Oh, we got a wow. I thought that was really an incredible
Are
thing.
you an ambulance?
Does anybody else have any questions? I really love that we're talking about the positives and not the, you know, the negatives. And I love the way you're looking at it like, I'm here to broker peace. I loved that. And that you're affecting the goodness and the tranquility of the community. And I also loved how beautifully, I really think you should write a book on moderation. Um, how beautifully you exited them by, offboarded them, by saying, we really support you on your journey. This community isn't for you. That is very classy and very kind. And I want to commend you for that. I think that's really amazing. That is really amazing. Um,
Yeah, because if I'm going to be honest, I've been on the receiving end. Like it even happened to me. Yeah, it happened to me this year. I've been on the receiving end of what happens when a community lacks moderation, or a community lacks guidelines, or if the guidelines are not like properly stated and all of that. And how I felt, no, no, no. If I wasn't a community manager, and if I didn't really want what I wanted from that community, I would have left, because how I was spoken to, made it like the way and manner I was addressed, and not just me. And then I realized that it got to a point people literally couldn't take it anymore, because they were like, this is how the community manager has been going. When people want to like correct her, let her know that no, this is not how you speak to people and all of that, she then justifies it by saying, um, um, but it's the rule is the rule. Where for me, I know that the issue could have been avoided if the platform affords new members the opportunity to have access to previous messages. But the platform does not. And what does that mean for the community manager? It means that you unavoidably have to repeat some things that you have said in the past. And doing that a lot can also affect you as a person. Like I said, being kind, even to even when you are signing off members from your community, is necessary, because it ensures that you leave a positive imprint in their minds. And I also think that your community guidelines too should also contain that if this community is not for you, let them know that they are always welcome to exit or graduate when necessary, but that you would always, always be grateful for the time you shared together. Yeah.
Um, I know that I'm just taking notes because I love this. I think, have you found differences in different by platform, like in terms of civility and diplomacy? Like for example, I've noticed, and I wonder if other folks have too. There's definitely within Reddit, for example, I see a little. There are moderators, but I see that there's an opportunity to really go after someone. Do you know what I mean? I don't like what you said, and therefore I'm going to go after you. Whereas I found in other communities, um, there seems to be less of that. Have you found that too? Like that that some platforms are more prone to it, or I don't know.
For me, I would say every platform that offers the opportunity for a community to be built, the platform itself has a persona that it gives off to either its users or its prospective users. And somehow, unintentionally, the users of such platform might adopt that persona. For example, if we're to go with social media platforms, because they're like one of the like building blocks of community before we started having other community platforms themselves. When you think Facebook gives you older, long form, less pictures. You this person knows someone that knows someone that knows someone that knows someone that knows someone, and the respect level or civility is can be guaranteed, but not in all cases, because there are some groups you might join in Facebook that would be brutal to you. There's some groups that you join on Facebook, say moms of this, parents of that, school community, that would afford you the civility that you actually deserve in real life. And then you also have, say, a platform like Twitter. You already know Twitter has like its own persona, very blunt, irrespective, like less empathy, very less um, attempts to pursue the actual truth, but actually pursuing what's trendy without always like verifying. And civility is a zero. The only people who are civil to you are your mutuals, and people that actually like know you. The entire world can just gang up against you, and if you can't handle that, man, it's going to be like a lot. And then you've got Instagram that gives off this feeling of you must of perfection, right angles, right this, right that. There can be no mistake. You cannot repeat your dressing. And like there's this need to be perfect, to be clean as your feed and all of that. And then you have TikTok. TikTok gives you relaxed, come as you are. I've seen TikToks made in the bathroom, in the pool, on air, etc. Like it's just your most authentic self. And that allows people to be understanding, empathetic. That's I remember a while back, people were like, stop saying things like, oh, don't mind how I look, I just woke up. And we're like, we actually know you just woke up. So that's the, and then there's LinkedIn, which when you think LinkedIn, you're thinking professional, you're thinking business wise. Even if you're making connections, civility is a must, respect is a must, and all of that. So that's where I want, those are like examples I wanted to give before fully diving into like my response. So I would say the I wouldn't be expecting so much civility from some platforms based on the kind of persona that the platforms themselves give off. So which is why I'm very grateful that we now have like actual community building platforms. Why? They are the platforms themselves are formless, are shapeless. They do not have a persona, they do not have like anything attached to it. It's just empty. Then you, as the community manager, you go in and you build it and you design it to be however shape, form size you want it to be. So if you want your community to be a community that lacks moderation, when you build that on a community platform, know fully well that in the future you cannot go back from that. Why? Because you haven't put in the work to ensure that you give your community the persona that would attract the right people to it. So that's actually how I see it. Same way in the gaming community, and it's what I'm not speaking from like a place of 100% facts, but most times people are more civil, or they accord like a certain respect when they believe you're like a certain gender to them. But where you're like a different gender, they feel you're not up to par. You're not like at their level to play certain kinds of games. And somehow that's because that's the kind of vibe that has been portrayed to the world. So most times you now have people would rather play with their friends, even though it's online, than play with a random stranger because they might just determine that you're not worthy of their time based on either your location or your gender or whatever, whatever, whatever. So for me, that's my response, Lori, and I hope that that kind of like helps. Yeah.
I love
Welcome,
it.
Sharon.
Welcome, Sharon. Do you have any questions for Margaret? So I have a question. How did you get started in community moderation? What's your backstory?
I would say I am an accidental community manager. I think Precious will know what I'm talking about. In my country, it's called youth service. Yeah, it's a youth service program where for 1 year, every university graduate is more like conscripted to go serve our country. Is a way of fostering unity and ensuring that we have an understanding of whatever states that we've been posted to serve. And I during my service here, it was during COVID. Yeah, so I wasn't actively serving. I was serving remotely. Yeah. And that's my friend, because I'm an extrovert. I love building genuine relationships. My friend reached out to me and he said, "Oh, Margaret, what you do is amazing. We would like you, we would very much like you to I see you, yes, I see you owning this role in the company that I work in." That was how he put it. And he said, all you have to do is like apply, do the interview, and if they find you like a great fit, fine. And that was how I became a community manager for the brand. And they had like a small WhatsApp group that served as our community. Now, the background of the WhatsApp group creation, it was made up of friends of the brand, and it was created prior to the launch of the brand. So that group was created to ensure that members of the group could drive the awareness that was being done by the marketing team for the brand. So because everyone knows everybody, there was no moderation, there were no guidelines then. It was just a I'll call it like group of friends. But then I came on board and I'm like, I started seeing some things, and I saw that this was a community for a brand. And I was I kept saying, no, 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 no. Some things cannot happen here, except you want to rename the brand, make it say XYZ and friends, and some things can fly. But you see, expensive jokes. So that was my very first foray into community moderation. Expensive jokes, as long as the other person doesn't laugh, it's not a joke. I get it. And then that's just the reality. It's not a joke. If I can't get it, don't tell me it's what they say it's irony, satire. No, an insult is an insult. A joke is a joke. An expensive joke is an expensive joke. If you're coming for the person and not the like even during arguments within the community, some things will be said, and we are a multicultural and a multi-tribal country, meaning it's very easy to step on someone's toes unintentionally. So I that was like my foray. At this, even at my country as a whole requires moderation for us to survive. Yes. So that was my very first foray into community moderation. And then in my church, I was appointed like a communications person, and I had to create community guidelines. Why? Because our chaplain had shared that he wanted to establish more centers of the community of the organization in various churches across Nigeria. And I'm like, this is great. However, to just ensure that we have this same way of doing things across board, and if I'm to move the vibe and love and atmosphere I felt in my center, I should also feel that even more wherever I move to. So I took it upon myself and I created like a community guideline for the community. And that's usually not what we share, which is a great achievement, where we share to newly formed communities so they have an idea of the do's and don'ts and what happens when um, you break the rules and all of that. Yeah. So that's it and more.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
I didn't know that. I learned quite a bit. I didn't know that everyone gets to do a service project. I did not know that. That's really amazing. Does anybody else have any questions they want to ask? We've got a little bit of time left. Okay. Do you have anything else, Margaret? Did you want to talk about? Um,
For me, I just want to say thank you so much, Laurie, for having me. Thank you, Sharon, for joining us. Thank you, Ijama, and thank you, Precious. It's been great. And even through this conversation, I'm looking back and I'm seeing how far I have come in terms of community moderation from my days of high school where I was head girl, which means you are living and breathing moderation. So when I was in uni, when I started like actively volunteering and then becoming like an ESCO, it's always crazy when the breaker of rules has to now be an ESCO. It just means overnight your life is turned around and you have to lead by example. It wasn't great, but those lessons that I had learned over the years, they they helped shape. I think they helped prepare me for when I now became like a community manager, and that's why I think I literally have no issues adapting to whatever community I'm in, and those lessons too have also helped me when it comes to appreciating people's cultures. But like I said, moderation it plays if you make it a habit and a way of life, it opens your eyes to always realize that sometimes it's not always about you, it's always about the other person. And there are so many conflicts that are happening across the world that you might not be privy to some conflicts that are happening between countries like mine and Ghana. We are forever in a battle of who has the best jollof, and it's not and it's only community moderation that would help you navigate that safely without actively picking a side. Even though Nigerian jollof is better, but then
of course it
that's
is.
why
Apologies
that's
to all the Ghanaian
why
friends.
yeah. But so that's just how it is. So community moderation also teaches you where when to step in and when not to step in. So it's been um it's been a great experience, and I'm so glad I got to share this with you all. And if you're watching this, I'm glad you learned something. Yeah.
Yes, I learned quite a bit, and I didn't know about that conflict. We have a similar conflict here between Colorado and New Mexico as to who has the better green chili. It is a big, big deal. I mean,
It's
people,
a big deal. Like it's really a big deal. And I never knew how big a deal it was until I joined social media. Like every year, like it does never grows, like it never grows old. And the best thing I've learned about moderation is you see the way there's been like a huge discussion between Colorado and New Mexico because I'm not from there, I will never ever contribute. I will always be on the fence. Why? I do not know the history. I'm not from there, and it's just too foolish to just go in and start picking a side. But you see what moderation teaches you? Just observe. Why? So when you visit someone from New Mexico, you know how best to arrange yourself and pitch your case. And when you visit someone from Colorado, you know how best to arrange yourself and pitch your case. But just going blindly into a fight that you did not know and has even existed before you were born, nah, no, that's foolish, very foolish. And I'm not about to risk it. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, I love that it's about food. I love that, everybody loves their food and respects their food and has their ideas about it. I like that it's food centric. Does anybody else have any more questions? Okay, well, if you have any more questions, please ping me on Slack and we can continue the conversation in our Microsoft Communities app. But I really want to thank you all for coming. And I really want to thank Margaret for everything. I love having her as a guest. I always learn so much from her. And this has been, I think, the most informative and uplifting conversation I've ever had about moderation. And now I have a very different view of it. And I really like that. So thank you for opening my mind and broadening it. And
Thank you
thank you
so
all.
much, Larry, for having me. You always know how much I love you and care about you. And I'm so glad I could actually do this for you. Thank you for having me. And thank you to my friends for showing up. Sorry.
Thank you all. And consider writing that book.
Yeah, I'll definitely get started on it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, everybody have a beautiful rest of your day, and
You
we will
too.
see you soon. So thank
You
you. I'm going to
too.
stop. Okay. Bye.